Let us pray. Father, we thank you today for allowing us to be here in this meeting. We thank you for extending so much grace to our county during this time of need. Lord, we thank you for those who have been sent to help during this pandemic, God, and all the families that's out there that's had problems with the pandemic and such. And God, we just thank you for this meeting and those who are attending tonight. Lord, just let us do everything we can do tonight to just glorify your name. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Good. We now call the Swain County Commissioners' regular session to order on September the 10th, 2020, 6 o'clock. Okay.
Face the colors. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, sir. The second item on the agenda tonight is adjustment of agenda. Do we have anything that we need to move or change? Commissioners, do you see anything you would like to move or change? All right, then we will move on to section 3, administrative reports, and the Swain County Schools update. Superintendent Mark Sale.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, sir.
I asked Cindy to share some notes with you today. I hope that you all got them. It'll save us a little time, perhaps. Chairman Bushy had called me a couple of weeks ago and asked that I come and share where we are, particularly as far as the pandemic is concerned and where COVID is concerned, because we have announced through social media that we have had 2 positive cases from students. One of those cases was found while at the dentist, and they did a COVID test, and that student was then quarantined for 14 days. And the second student, which was about a week or 2 later, I don't remember exactly, was showing some symptoms and went to the doctor and was tested and came back positive. We have been very diligent at following the guidelines from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. And those guidelines have a lot of pieces to them, and I'm going to have Brandon Sutton, who is the Director of Student Services, come and talk about some of that in just a minute for you so that you'll understand some of what we're doing. But 2 of the cornerstone pieces that we have with that is maintaining 6-foot social distance between students at all times. And we have been very successful at doing that inside the classrooms and even the hallways. I was noticing yesterday while I was at a school and students were transitioning from one place to another, that it has just become a natural part of their day to put that space between them as they're moving down the halls and doing other things. The second piece, which is important, maybe not as important as the 6-foot social distancing, but the second piece are the masks. And of course, we've provided masks for students, but what we've found is that the families are providing masks for the students, and they're not using ours most of the time. Now, there are some exceptions that we're allowing, and the Health and Human Service Department has asked us to do that, and those are for students who struggle with masks, particularly students who have health conditions, who may have some anxiety issues or may have some developmental delays. And so we have a series of steps that we go through to try and protect them and to protect those that are around them. The CDC, DHHS guidance says that as long as we are able to maintain 6 feet social distancing with a mask and not be within that parameter for more than 15 cumulative minutes between any 2 individuals, that we have not caused close contact. And because we have been able to do that so well, both of those positive cases had negative impact in our schools. Negative impact. It didn't affect teachers and it didn't affect any students. Now, what we do on a regular basis, though, if we have a concern, is talk with Allison Cochran, who will then advise us what our next steps are. But beyond that, rather than me doing all the talking tonight, I would like for Brandon to come and to talk about some of the other pieces that we have in place and how we handle something called a presumptive positive. That's very important, and we'll talk about those numbers in just a second. Brandon?
So DHHS issued a presumptive positive guidance for us, and it starts with a screening, either a bus attestation for those students that ride a bus, and then screening at school, because we ask again. But it's 3 questions. Have you come in close contact with someone? Have you have any of these 5, 6 symptoms? And then have you been diagnosed? And if a student responds yes, we have a space for them until we can get them back home. And then there's some guidelines as to what they have to do next. Any visitor coming to our campus, staff, we have it set up in our office down here on Central, on our 2nd level, is we ask the same questions. You have your temperature screened. And if you 100.4 temperature or answer yes to any of those questions, you're not allowed in our buildings. And then we have, if someone gets sick during the day, staff member, there's guidance on how to handle that. There's guidance on how to handle if a student gets sick during the day, what happens on the bus. It talks about how to clean. Usually the top line says to call your local health department. So it's really a lot of Allison right now. So we have, this was provided for us and really outlined exactly what we had to do. So every school has this, and then we also have a tracking document that is a spreadsheet that each school nurse is responsible for. So if anybody screens yes, they document what time they screened yes or screened presumptive positive, and then what they did in response to that, and what the health department said to do. So we track their dates that they have to miss, the student or the staff member, when they can return. We also go ahead and notify our teachers. We've been trying to do, as soon as a student has to miss, we've got these plans for the remote learning. Now, students that are coming to campus, then that have to quarantine for 10 or 14 days, their remote learning looks different than a student who is on option C. But we have those options for students that are going to have to miss an extended amount related to COVID-19. So far, it's been a lot of work on a lot of people, and it's been successful to this point. And it's because of our teachers and our students' efforts and our parents. Parents calling in saying, my son or daughter's feeling poor this morning. This is their symptoms. We're going to keep them home and take them to the doctor or see what's next. So parents have been a big help. The health department, our local medical practices, all of them have been a huge asset to us and really helped spread the word. And I think that community effort is why we're still open 3-4 weeks into school.
Any
Thank
questions?
you. Thank you.
Any questions for Brandon, anyone?
Anyone have a question?
Thank you, Brandon. I want to emphasize what he said about the cooperation that we're finding or having in the community with our parents, and that's going to be even more important as we go into the flu and strep season, because so many of the symptoms that come along with flu or strep, a cold, even allergies, mimic the symptoms of COVID. And so we have to be especially cautious with that. And if we have any parents or any community members that are listening tonight, I need to emphasize that it's not just the symptom of the student, but it's also the symptoms of the family members. We need to pay attention to that as well. And so if Mark's brother, I don't have a brother, but if I had a brother and he was showing symptoms, it would be wise for me to stay home from school. And we're in a good place with our remote learning because we can continue instruction with those students even though they may not be at school. It's not the same level or same quality of instruction in my opinion, but at least the instruction can continue. We have had 53 different cases where a student has either come to school with some kind of a symptom or more likely has been reported that they are showing signs of a symptom at home. And we track every one of those. We have a spreadsheet that's been provided by the state. And in all of those, only 2 have had positive results. I think that's a pretty good track record. We have been able to maintain what we're doing in the classroom because of that. And again, I want to thank the community for that. We've added part-time custodians. We've hired 4 part-time people that are working 28 hours a week. They're working 4 days, 7 hours, to help with some of the cleaning because they're more stringent cleaning processes that we have right now. As Brandon said, everyone is scanned and goes through the health screening process. Our buses are cleaned daily after each run. The students are assigned to one seat. That is the only seat that they can sit in. And unless they are riding with a sibling, only one person is allowed per seat. That's been one of the more difficult pieces that we've had to work through, and probably is one of the reasons that we have such small numbers in our classrooms right now. We can only put so many students on buses at this point. Our high traffic areas in the schools are cleaned multiple times a day. We have a chemical that we're purchasing from Hilliard right now. It's called QT3. I've looked at the SDS sheet and compared that SDS sheet to Lysol that a lot of people use for disinfecting, and it has a much safer track record than even Lysol. And we're using that on a regular basis in our classrooms. Because we're not in school on Wednesdays on the average week, we have been delivering meals on those days to try and take care of not only the students who may not be in school the next couple of days, but also to try and help the families who have students who are involved in remote learning. And yesterday, we were able to begin that process again through the free meal program, which is a grant. We were afraid we weren't going to be able to do that, and we weren't able to deliver on the buses, but we had some pickup spots, and Jennifer Brown, our food and nutrition director, said that 2,400 families came through, or 2,400 meals were delivered by people coming in and picking them up. I only look for that to increase over the next weeks as people find out that this is available again. I think that those are the primary pieces about the pandemic that we're dealing with. Or do you have any questions about any of that? Because I've gone pretty quickly. I'm trying to save your time.
Let's back up for just a second if we can. Superintendent, SDS you mentioned, what does that mean?
It's a safety sheet that every chemical that is used in a public setting has to be tested for. There are 9 or 10 or 11 different criteria that they look at. And any chemical that we use in the school system has to have an SDS sheet that has been approved for use in that setting.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions at this point?
I wanted to share with you tonight that we have about 1,834 students that are enrolled this year. Actually, that's down. What we have seen over the past couple of years is a decline in enrollment. It's really hard to trace why that's happening. It's not substantial in every place, but especially on the east end of the county, we're finding our numbers come down. Of those 1,834 students, and we're not including in that number the students that are enrolled in the Cherokee school system, but we actually fund. And if you wanted me to explain why that's happening, I would have to go downstairs and get Stephanie Treadway, because that has to do with all of the funding give and take that happens between us and the Cherokee Central schools. But anyhow, of those 1,834, we have about 650 students who are currently involved in remote learning. So it's about a 35% enrollment in that particular group. And what we have found is that is pretty much true across school systems that are operating both with face-to-face Plan B and also the remote Plan C, which we're all expected to have in place according to the governor's orders. We have about 32 staff members that are either fully invested or partially invested in delivering that remote instruction. There are some teachers who we're actually paying them to work during their planning periods so that they can help deliver and facilitate that remote instruction. It's easier to do that, and actually it's more beneficial in some places, particularly at the high school, to do that, because if you pull a teacher out of a classroom for full-time remote instruction, it's very likely that you're going to lose a course. We aren't so heavy in numbers with staff and students that we have 2 or 3 people teaching Algebra 1. We have 2 people teaching Algebra 1, and both of them teach that part of the day. So if we remove them from the classroom, we've had a severe impact in what we can offer. And so what we've done is arrange some schedules in a different way so that we can maintain the courses and be able to deliver both forms of instruction. Do you have any questions about face-to-face or our virtual learning?
I've got one question. Do you have any idea on the number, you got 649 students, how many of those students leave their home to do online learning?
I don't have that number,
Nobody has
Danny. We haven't done a survey along those lines since we've started back this year, but I can tell you from previous surveys, and I'm grabbing at some numbers in memory, which is a really dangerous thing for me to do right now. We have about probably 35 to 40% of our students who work digitally from cell service. And so they are automatically impacted by that and may have to go somewhere in order to get the level of connectivity that they may need to fully engage in remote learning through the Admitum program. We have about 10% of our students from our previous surveys that we know had no connectivity at home at all. Okay? Now, Danny, what we have done and what we are continuing to work towards is being able to provide a MiFi hotspot for some of those families. We have been involved in at least 2, if not 3 different programs that are supposed to provide those along with the service so that the family has to pay nothing. We have yet to receive all of those because the demand is so high across the United States and in North Carolina for connectivity that they're being put into use as quickly as they're produced. Okay? That's the best answer that I can give you on that. All right? Any other questions? Now, I know, Chairman Bushyhead, that I think your primary concern had to do with the virus and how that's affecting the school system, particularly because of the positive cases, because we spoke about that. But I also heard you say an update. And I just wanted to bring to you some information about some things that are going on, some of which you probably already know, and then tell you about a need that we have rising at the moment that we're going to have to work together on, I think. The construction at the high school is moving along pretty well. I walked through yesterday, and it's stunning how much work has gotten done in the past month inside. You know, we're in the final stages of prepping. I've even heard that final inspections in some areas could happen as early as next week. That doesn't mean, though, that we will be able to put our students in all of those sections yet, particularly the administrative area. And the reason for that, even though that will be complete and the furniture should be in place next week in the new administrative area, the parking area, the drive-through area that we're going to be using for parents in front of that will not be ready for quite a while. And we can't bring students in through those front doors if they're going to be continuing to grade and do work on that parking area. And I don't have a deadline. Kevin, do we have a deadline on that? Because right now we're waiting on our engineer to get the design completed for that so that can then be put out to bid and we can complete that part. My hope is that we'll be able to be using that in the month of November. That's my hope, and I think that that's a reasonable time frame. The cafeteria should be available for use, though, probably in early October. I heard from Bob Guerin that they are still on track for that. And so all of the construction piece should be finished on that within the next week or 10 days, and then they can go ahead and move the new equipment in so that we'll no longer have to take meals up there from other sites to feed the students. And that's based upon the best knowledge that I have that's being given to me. The STEM classrooms, and if we really, Chairman Bushyhead, we should schedule a walkthrough together because I would like for you to walk into the new STEM classrooms. I asked Bob Guerin yesterday when we were walking through where the basketball goals were because those rooms are so large. small basketball teams could probably play in there.
Wow.
It's a phenomenal how large they are, and every inch will be used. But it's a great addition. Those will be finished last. We're waiting on the millwork, which is the cabinetry, the lab tables and things like that, to be completed. COVID has slowed that process of manufacturing down. At least that's what I've been told. And as soon as we get those pieces finished, we'll be in those rooms as well. I think that those are the primary pieces that have to do with the construction at the high school. Kevin, you probably, I really believe, have your fingers on that more than I do. Is there anything I've left out?
I think it's good. I mean, right now, I know the big buzz is COVID has delayed.
Right.
And that's what we're hearing from a lot of different people. But with the one part, especially the entranceway, that has been delayed primarily because of the interaction between DOT and the construction
Yes.
folks and the engineer. So once we get that final plan approved by all parties, then we can bid it out and it'll be, hopefully, go a lot quicker.
And I had intended to bring to you a copy of what that's going to look like, and I forgot to do that tonight. I forgot to pick it up. I will get that to Cindy, and she can distribute that to all of you. I think when you look at that new entranceway and the way that it's going to flow and the parking that it's going to add, I think you're going to be pretty impressed with how that's going to look. Okay?
Do we have an anticipated finish time for all of this that we're talking about?
Well, hopefully at least by the first of the year.
Yes.
for
Oh,
everything.
absolutely.
So,
Now, if it's not,
Are you looking at sooner than that in your own?
as soon as they turn the keys over to the parts that we can use from inside the building. For an example, the cafeteria will be in the cafeteria. Okay, the students are eating in the eating area of the cafeteria now. All we're waiting for is the kitchen to cook. The counseling suite, which is impressive as well. And it really ought to be the art room because the light is so wonderful in there. That'll be turned over to us very soon, and we'll be able to access that from inside. So as soon as we get the keys, we're in. Okay? As far as the administrative area, I'm not sure exactly, Mr. Bushyhead, how we'll be accessing that or using that. We may be able to have our administrators working from the new offices but not use the front doors. Okay? And I think that that's important for us because where the office and counseling space is in the current high school that they used today, that's going to be remodeled and turned into 4 classrooms. And we need to go ahead and get that process started. So it's going to be staged as we get into it.
I understand that. Are you using the cafeteria now?
We're using the eating space only.
Okay.
We have to because when our students are eating, to keep them out of the classroom, which allows them to spread just a little bit more, we still have to keep them at least 6 feet apart.
Right.
So if you go to the high school, you're going to find tables and chairs in squares all over the school for our lunch times. Any other questions about that? Do you have a copy of a sheet that looks something like this? Okay. This is our latest construction project at the high school, and actually it's going to affect all of our campuses at some point. If you'll recall, about a year ago, we came to you and we started talking about performance contracting. And one of the primary reasons that we were doing that was so that we could liberate some money that we're already spending for utilities and reappropriate that for replacement of some equipment. That process of change, that process of construction started yesterday. They started putting in, or actually maybe the day before, they started changing out the lights from the, I think the T11, am I correct, Kevin, T11 to LEDs? Yeah. They started that process at the high school already. And it was really interesting this morning when we went up to talk to people because these folks from Schneider come in at 4 p.m. and then they work until 2 a.m. And they're out of there and nobody knows that they've been there except when they forget to turn a breaker back on, which happened today. But because we didn't have any lights in our stairwells, which is a really interesting experience. But when they turned the other lights on in the office space, they felt like they were being blinded by sunlight, because it's a brand new type of light, and it really is going to make a difference. If you'll look at that schedule, you'll notice that at East, they're going to begin replacing the chillers in December. But before that, while we're still in our air conditioning season, they're going to replace the burners and the boilers at the elementary schools so that we can stop using fuel oil and we can start using propane. That will be a significant cost savings for us. What's amazing to me is if you go down through there and look at the time frame, the schedule they have, all of this should be completed by February the 5th. That's stunning to me, because this is a tremendous amount of work that they're going to accomplish, and they're not going to impact our daily operations while they're doing it. So if they can pull all of that off, we need to recommend them to anybody that'll take them. It's a good group. But I just wanted you to know that that process has begun. Okay? Any questions about performance contracting?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
who we contract propane with? How's that bid system work?
I hesitate to throw a name out at this point. We've been using one company. That is changing, and I'm afraid to use the name of the company because I'm afraid I will use the wrong name. But that particular company has a state contract. They bid through the state, and they have to offer that price, which is a state level, to anyone who uses their service. And that contract price is almost always lower than anyone else. And if they come above that, we have options that we can exercise. Okay?
Thank you.
Roger, I'm afraid to mention a name.
Oh, I really wasn't asking for that as much as the procedure of the process. I mean, it'd be like most other state
Yes.
processes.
Yes.
Thank you.
When I start reading, I get into trouble.
It's okay.
But I was noting, and I'd asked Kevin about this for this building, but has COVID-19 caused a change in the actual filters that you're using in your public spaces and air conditioning?
We haven't changed the type of filtering that we're using. There may be a few places where we are adding additional filtering. I tell you there's a classroom that we have actually purchased an air filter for because that particular teacher has a higher susceptibility rate than others, and her doctor said she needs that, so we purchased that. But as far as changing to a HEPA, even a HEPA level filter, we have not done that.
Do you anticipate that?
We don't anticipate doing that because we haven't been instructed by the state that that's necessary.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
I just like to say, I've got 3 kids in school. The one is on the Swain virtual. The other 2 are on the Plan B, and it's going really good for them. All 3 are doing really well with it. So I appreciate you guys working on that. And to have 2 positives in there and have, procedures in place to handle that says something too. So, yeah, we thank you guys for that.
Well, there's a lot of hard work, a tremendous amount of planning, but the bulk of the load has fallen on our teachers and building level admin. And they're working, Kevin, they're probably working longer hours and with more energy than they've worked in a long time, and yet they're bearing up under that willingly because they believe in what they're doing. So really the credit goes there.
Yeah. My youngest girl's on the Swain virtual, and I really like the way it's laid out.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's she pays attention. She's really enthused about what's going on in there, and then the actual face-to-face on during the FaceTime on there.
Mm-hmm.
She really enjoys that too. So I think everything's really going well on that side, and so that's really good for our county to be able to come together like that fast and put something together that actually is working.
And I would be remiss if I said that it's perfect. It's not, because this is the first time in public education that we have ever approached a dilemma of this size in this way. Public school has always been face-to-face, teacher-student, for that interchange between the two of them. And being pushed into a more of a technical, digitally delivered process has been an uphill battle, learning curve for all of us, including the company that we're using. Because what we're finding is that particular company, Ed Minham, has been overwhelmed with business because everybody's doing this. And so they're struggling to meet the need and to grow at the same time. But we are improving. The instruction is becoming stronger. We're no longer worrying as much about the technical aspects and making sure that the communication is happening. Now we're able to get into, so where is the student and where do we need to take them and how do we do that? So I think we've done well, but there's still room to grow. The only other thing, Chairman Bushyhead, I'd like to share with you is an issue that is recurring at the middle school. And whenever we went into the performance contract, we had an audit of all of our HVAC systems across the district completed, and we found that at the high school in particular, the units that are there are well beyond their expected lifespan. And there is a particular unit, I'm just going to call it unit number 3, that we have been fighting with for the past year. We're on our 3rd compressor in a year there, and that compressor is still not working correctly. We are at a point where we have tried everything. We've brought in outside contractors to look at this, and the truth is we're just going to have to start getting more invested in replacing some of these systems because they're outdated, they've been overused, and you can't get parts for them like you used to. And so we've been in contact with an engineer to come and look at the brick building that houses the 7th and 8th grade students. That is the building that sits right next to the gym, okay? And I asked him today for just a very rough estimate, because he hasn't come in and done a complete study yet, of what he believes it will cost to fix that building. And right now he is just estimating that it's going to cost $125,000 to fix the HVAC in that building, which would mean either replacing or upgrading the units outside. And the other piece of that is the exchange units, the air handlers inside, will also have to be replaced because we're using a different type of Freon than they were using at that point. Our exchange units won't handle the new Freon. And so we're looking at having to move in that direction, or we're going to continue purchasing $4,000 and $5,000 compressors and other pieces and spending money for repairs to the point where we're just throwing good money after bad, more and more and more. So once I get those proposals from this engineer, I'm going to have to bring them to you, and we're going to have to talk about how can we move in that direction. Now, fortunately, from what I have seen from the North Carolina Department of Revenue, our quarter-cent sales tax did pretty well last year. The numbers that I'm seeing is that it brought in over $400,000. Now, Kevin may see something different, I don't know, but that's what I'm seeing online. I don't know what it's doing right now, but I think that through that quarter-cent funding, we'll be able to work a solution in this next fiscal year. I believe that there will be plenty of money there to meet the need of paying for the loan that we've taken out for the high school construction. And with the money left over, we'll be able to do some other things. And that was the plan the whole time. And I was up front with you all about that when we started talking about performance contracting. We can take care of these big ticket items like chillers through that, but we still have other needs that we're going to need to address piecemeal. And this is the first piece, in my opinion, okay? So I want you to know that that's coming in your direction. I don't want to spring anything on you, and I believe that we are approaching this with wisdom and with caution, okay?
Are you looking, Mark, at fixing the HVAC in the system you're talking about during the colder months?
Ben, we can't, because those exchange units not only push the cool air from the air conditioning, they also push the hot air from the heat. That particular system in that building is a retrofit, and you actually have to make a choice of when you move from air conditioning to heat and almost do a changeover in those units. You have to shut one part down, turn another part off, and then in the spring reverse it and drain the pipes. So we can't do that during the school year. My hope was that we could do it over Christmas. I was advised today that there just really is not enough time to get all that work done, even for one floor. So what we're going to have to do is do our best to limp through until the summer, and then by then we can have a contract in place, and the day the students are done, they can start work. That's my hope.
Right, okay. So the HVAC,
Yes,
the whole system has to be replaced in order for any of it to function.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
I'm just trying to understand.
We could possibly do one floor and not the other, but they're the same age, and we're living on borrowed time from both of them. You know, and I've thought about, well, could we even do this piecemeal, that part? Could we just do the 8th grade floor and then come back later and do the 7th grade? I think it's wiser for us to go ahead and look at doing the whole thing. I mean, I know that $125,000 is a lot of money, but to fix this problem, I don't know that it is. I think we can do it. I trust you.
We trust you as well, so we hear you. We hear you. Okay.
Any other questions or any other thoughts?
Anything, Commissioners?
Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you, and thank you, Mr. Chairman Bushyhead, for asking me to come tonight.
That's fine. You want to introduce your...
Melly Burns is here. She's chair of our school board, and she is in the last stages of her life as a politician, because she has chosen not to run again, and so she'll be stepping down, I guess, November, correct? And Melly will be a loss, as will Lambert Wilson, who both of you have been on the board for 12 years now. And Jerry McKinney is running again, and I don't know if he has any competition or not. I don't know. But we may be able to keep him. But we have Melly, and then you've met Brandon.
Well, for you, and also, I'm sorry, and I forgot his gentleman's name. Thank you very much. And for you, Melly, thank you specifically. So you've done a good job with this crew.
I wouldn't say that. I think she wrangles us well. Thank you all
sir,
very much.
Thank you. Okay. Let's move on to the tax collector's report. Peggy?
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is for August 2020. Total receivable, $5,525,871.75. 2020 ad valorem tax for the month, $796,428.05. Total months good collected with delinquents, write-offs, cashbacks is $944,854.64. Total collected year-to-date is $1,742,479.94. Vehicles for the month is $38,825.98. Year-to-date, $79,915.66. Waste fee for the month is $110,509.09. Waste fee for year-to-date, $207,946.86.
So the waste fees collected hasn't suffered too much from the COVID situation?
No. Collection's coming in real well. In fact, we have lots of payments coming in with coupons. We have a lot of comments on the coupons and how it's helping people. So it's so far, it's worked out real well.
Good, okay. Any questions? If there are no questions, I would like to accept this report as given. I would like a motion and a second, please.
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And we have a motion and a second on the floor, and all those to accept this report as given, please manifest by raising your right hand. Passed unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. And then we have an emergency team update.
Good evening. In front of you, you should have a handout. It's a spreadsheet. Of course, we have the United States statistics, North Carolina. I'll just go straight to it. In North Carolina, there's been 2.5 million tests completed. There's 180,754 positive, 2,990 deaths. Currently, 928 are hospitalized. The overall positive rate is 7.2%. Case fatality is 1.7%. In Swain County, there have been 3,985 tests. 44 are currently pending. We have, let's see, I gotta go across, sorry. 135 positive tests currently from March. We only have 2 active cases currently. There have been 3 deaths. Our overall positive rate is 3.4%. Case fatality is 2.2%. So basically, in the past month, in 30 days, we have done 922 tests. And then with the positive tests, there's been 19 within the past month. Looking at that, still with just 135 positive out of a roughly 14,000 population, you're still looking at about 1% are positive in Swain County. On the back of that page are 2 graphs that I've been presenting. It's the cases by age and then the comparison of the tests versus positive tests. Again, that second one, the blue line is the number of tests. The orange line is the number of positives. So you can see we're quite low on that, thankfully. Down at the bottom, I just did some local from Western North Carolina, the other counties, Macon, Graham, Clay, Cherokee, and Jackson, about what they're reporting yesterday and of today. So looking across Western North Carolina with us, I just want to point out the case fatality rate in all of the counties are rather low, which is, very good, of course. That's what we want to see. So that's what I'm looking at currently. Do you have questions? Urgent care now has the rapid antigen test. I believe they got all of their materials in today, and they should start doing rapid tests tomorrow if they choose to do that. I think the majority of the people that they will test will be those that are actually symptomatic or have been identified as a close contact. The test currently takes about 15 minutes. If there is a negative test, they still do a diagnostic test. And of course, that takes about 3 days to get back. You still have to quarantine for the 14 days as well. So that does not change with that. This Saturday, we're working with urgent care to do the drive-through COVID testing. It's at 1:30, from 1:30 to 4. It's going to be at the State Employees Credit Union around the back through the drive-through, since it's covered. And that is free for anybody.
Frontline people. They were invited to this, of course, but how have they been handled in the past? How have you been watching the particular group and trying to catch anything that gets in the way?
Yes, especially with emergency management, with the ambulance drivers and such as that. The hospital alerts David if there's a positive test, if someone that they've transported, they're tested, watched, such as that. Same thing with nursing homes. They're actively testing every 2 to 3 weeks and looking at that, as well as, I don't know what the hospital does, how often they test.
It's my understanding that we, meaning Swain County, have not had any positive situations in the nursing homes. Am I correct, or was there one?
There was a situation a couple of months ago where we did have, I believe it was an employee and then a contract worker. Currently, right now, we've had in the past month 3 people. There was 2 employees and 1 resident, and I wrote that down. And they were all 3 asymptomatic. So it was just they were doing active testing and caught those 3. So if you see it in the paper or any news outlet or something like that, it's considered an outbreak because there's 2 or more within 28 days. So if they don't have any more cases from that day of positive from the last case in 28 days, they're considered out of that outbreak. But right now, it's just been 3, and they were asymptomatic, all 3 of them.
Well, I just think that has just been, in Swain County, that has just been something
It is. They've done a great job.
very positive, very awesome.
And we speak to them almost daily, probably. So they do a fabulous job out there at Mountain View Manor.
Right. Good. Now, there's something going on now called the multi-system inflammatory syndrome.
Yes.
The MIS-C and COVID. You're familiar with that? You're up with that? What's going on with that?
I'm not up with that. I'll be quite honest, I'm not. I think it's more with children.
Yes.
Yes.
It is with children.
I'm not up with that.
Okay.
Because we wouldn't see that through the health department. Not that I shouldn't be up with it, but we wouldn't see cases like that come through the health department for diagnosis or anything like that.
Who would be in?
Hospitals, emergency
hospital.
cares, pediatricians, mostly.
Okay. Just wondering, so I thank you for that.
Welcome.
Any questions?
Just on a side note, since I'm here, MedAssist is scheduled for October the 17th, and it's going to be a drive-through event. What will happen is you can actually register online for the medicine that you want to receive, and you'll just come that morning and pick it up. And if you don't register, you can come that morning and fill out the paperwork. You'll stay in your vehicle, we'll fill the bag, and then bring it out to you. But we're still, at this moment, still planning to have that on October the 17th, and it will be, like I said, a drive-through event. And they have been conducting those through various counties, and they say it's worked well, so.
Okay, good. October the 17th, from when to when?
Probably from 9 to 2, and at this moment, it's going to be at West Elementary, unless they tell me otherwise.
Okay, 9 to
2.
2. I thought you said 10. I thought, wow, now we can get.
No, we're quick, but we're not that quick.
Okay, good. Other questions? We thank you for the update.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Do we have any public comment?
There was none. Nobody searched on that.
Okay, moving down to number 5, action items to consider. The minutes you have in front of me, I have them in front of me, and you have them in front of you. The minutes from the August 13th regular session and the August 27th work session. Do you have any corrections that you'd like to make on those? If not, I would like to do them both together. So I will accept a motion to accept the minutes as they're presented.
I'll make that motion to accept.
Thank you.
Second.
We got a motion and a second on the floor to accept the minutes as they've been presented to us. All in favor, raise your right hand. And it's passed unanimously. Okay, then we have the Brindle Street Maintenance Agreement.
So I had sent this to you last week, I believe, the end of last week. We've been approached by a lawyer that works for a developer out of Alabama, I believe is where they're out of. Yeah, Huntsville, Alabama. Basically asking us to look at the maintenance agreement for Brindle Street. And we are just one owner on Brindle Street. And basically this is just acknowledging and how the maintenance items flow. If you use the road, then you're going to be participating in the maintenance of that road. And so all this is doing is, from our standpoint, acknowledging that these people, particular people, don't currently use the road, but if they do in the future use the road, then they're going to participate in the maintenance program. And so this is basically an acknowledgement. With this, and I kind of provided a map. I know it's very small. If you turn it, let's see, so you're looking at it straight like this. If you turn it like that, you'll see huge branches at the bottom. Brindle Street is the one going vertically. And then with this transaction, they do want to give the county this little bitty piece of property over here to the left. It's where we currently have the North Carolina Forest Service folks. We already have a road there, so we currently have a right-of-way, but they're just going to give us that sliver of property, which is about 0.2 acres.
Okay.
That'll go against with it. So that transaction, all that's happening kind of at the same time, but they just needed this acknowledgement of this maintenance of the Brindle Street, because that particular parcel does not use it currently. But all it's saying, if they do ever use it, they will go in and help maintain it. So, and that's written, and I can read the now therefore stuff. It basically says incorporated recitals set forth above are hereby fully incorporated in acknowledgement, as if the same were fully set forth therein. Maintenance responsibility, the parties hereby acknowledge and agree that unless and until the owner and or its successors, agents, and assigners utilize the road, the owner of the Winchester property shall have no maintenance obligation, monetary or otherwise, or on or in relation to the road, which is Brindle Street. The responsibility of the maintenance of the road shall be borne by those property owners that utilize the road, or the same. And that's the other legalese at the bottom. That's basically all. That one sentence on number 2 is really the guts of the whole acknowledgement piece.
Okay. Any questions? Do you need us to adopt it? Do you need us to, okay.
Just to vote on it, yes.
Okay, you have it in front of you. You've had it in front of you for a few days. Do you have any questions on it? We need to vote that we accept this agreement. Hearing no questions, I'll entertain a motion to accept the acknowledgement concerning right-of-way maintenance.
I'll make a motion to accept the right-of-way maintenance.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the concerning the right-of-way maintenance. We have a second. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. We passed unanimously. Okay, very good. Moving on down the agenda, we're now to the manager's report.
I just have a couple things tonight. First is it's cooler in the building, so we did get the air conditioning fixed. Hopefully we'll muddle through it more, and we still have an engineer hired to kind of do an assessment as well. And then we'll probably be redoing some of the guts of the interior at some point in the future. So the other thing I wanted to kind of circle back around, and I was in class on Wednesday and had Kevin Siegel go with Jim Brown to meet with the the engineer for the pool. And they had some good discussions. One of the things that, you know, the engineer had said, or I guess they're the engineer, aren't they, or the designer?
They're designer. I don't know if
Yeah.
they're.
So anyway, the designer was talking about, of course, going back to the depth again, the 8-foot versus the 10-foot, which I think it doesn't really matter to us. She made the comment that it would be better to do the 8-foot, that there's no really any reason to do a 10-foot if you don't have a massive, you know, either diving board or anything like that. You can jump in and dive an 8-foot. And so I know that the advisory board, Mr. Douthit had made a comment that they were in support of the 10 feet versus the 8 feet. And that was really the only stipulation I think they made at that meeting a couple of weeks ago. And so I did ask Jim today to call Jim Douthit back to see if they would be amenable to do the 8-foot versus 10-foot. It'll be, you know, and it's like I say, I don't know what the cost comparison is going to be. I know it'll be cheaper to do an 8-foot versus 10-foot. You're going to be, of course, you're going to be filtering or cycling through less water, which will be less operational cost because you don't have to treat as much water. But in all actuality, I don't know. So
There's a gallon kind of question there. If there's a filtration system that they're gonna offer us maybe to put in, if we want to, it's a different pump tank. There's a gallon limit there to where if we exceed that gallon limit, it has something else happen, it triggers something else. So therefore, if you go for the 8-foot, you don't have as much capacity as far as volumetric gallons in the pool, which may limit the size. I think it was the size of the pump system that you need.
Right.
So
anyway, we're still in conversation. I think they are going to be getting us a plan for y'all to look at hopefully by the work session at the end of this month. And then right after that, we've got to probably republicize, because I've had 2 or 3 other contractors contact me about the plan itself. And to this point, we've not seen any updated contractual or construction drawing rendering yet. So once that takes place, we'll get y'all to approve it or look at it at the next meeting, and then we'll republicize that out for 2 more weeks. We do currently have a company that is ready to go if they were to get the bid by the 20th of October. So we're hopeful that all of that's going to play out, and we'll have it going by at least the mid to late October. So as far as the funding. The other thing I want to mention, just on continuing on the pool thought process, you know, if we are looking at more features, you know, we've talked about, you know, the bathrooms being outdated, a lot of different stuff. I want to start the process of at least looking at a master plan for maybe 5 or 6 years in the future, what it's going to look like or what we want it to look like. And so I did want to start that process of just engaging stakeholders to see, you know, what is possible. You know, if we do want other features to be added, definitely the bathrooms are going to have to do a major change. And should the bathrooms be located there, or should they be better served somewhere else to better utilize that space? So that's one thing I was going to talk about at a future work session with you. We'll come up with some design plans, some thoughts, and then if we do decide to go that way, we can look at maybe doing some Parks and Recreation Trust Fund application for a grant that'll cover half of the cost of that, and then we'll have up to 3 years to actually implement. So, and that pays 50% of the cost of it. So, we'll go through that. But we've had a lot of discussion, and a lot of people have asked since it came out in the paper a few weeks ago about, well, what else? Is that the only thing we have planned? And not necessarily. If there's money available, I think we could make it a big attraction and that sort of thing. So, anyway. You may have any questions about the pool right now. And I don't know if the advisory board is going to meet again or if it's just going to be maybe a retally, but I think it was a split vote, I think, on the advisory board, from my understanding. And so he may just be reaffirming who voted yes for the 10-foot versus 8-foot.
Would an 8-foot depth make diving possible?
Yes.
Not just off the side, but a diving board or something, or how are you looking at that?
Well, there is no diving. There was not going to be a diving board in the current layout anyway. So, no, you can't use a diving board on an 8-foot, but you can dive from the side of the pool. I don't think you could dive with a 10-foot either.
I don't think so.
With a diving board, I don't think you can. So,
Well, I don't know about a 10-foot, but I would be very concerned about an 8-foot if you had a board.
yeah,
People
the current plan is not to have a board at all.
Okay. Any questions?
Let's see. So last time you heard from folks about the erosion issue up at East Alarka. I think I sent y'all an email about that from one of our inspectors. And we're starting a new process, so I just don't want you to be caught off guard by it. Erosion control is in state law already. It's already there. We have an ordinance for it. The mechanism on how and when you have inspections, there's just not really been policy set on when you implement erosion control measures. And so, judging by other counties and how they have done it, I've kind of instructed Bill Maher and the inspection department to basically say, make sure they have ground cover and make sure they keep their property on their property before you issue a building permit. That's pretty much what it says in state law anyway. And then you won't even have to, I mean, the plan thing is anything above a certain acre, it's above 1 acre. That's when the plan thing gets involved. But before the plan thing, it still says in the law, it says, owner has to keep their property on their property. Meaning you can't erode on somebody else. And so as long as they have ground cover and, you know, silt fence or brush barriers or however you want to keep it on your property, the law says keep it on your property. So as long as the inspector can see that a homeowner has done their job, then go through the rest of the building permit process. And that, it just makes more sense to me because what we were doing, and we ran into the issue with one of the folks, I think Kenneth, you had brought it to our attention. It was kind of at the end of the process rather than the beginning of the process. Well, it shouldn't have never got to where they were even building a house until they had done number one, right? And so, anyway, if you hear it in the community that I didn't get a building permit because my erosion control wasn't in place, well, that's the truth, probably. You know, they're not going to get a building permit until you've got ground cover on there, which is as simple as, you know, sowing grass and putting down straw, or brush barrier, or silt fence, or, you know, just keeping this stuff on your own property. So I did want to bring that out just to, you know, if you do hear issues about that, we're trying to just redesign or re-implement really what we should have been doing from the beginning, which erosion starts when you make the cut on property, not after you put the house in. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So anyway, just want to bring that out. Does anybody have any questions about that? I know it's, and we'll be looking at that ordinance as well, the soil erosion ordinance, because there's certain things you may want to tweak about it going forward from the county standpoint. But even if you didn't have that, that's still in the state law that we would have to do it anyway.
So if something is going on in Swain County, our department would have to bring it to the state, because the state can't be out and looking at all of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's as long as it's kind of like a law on the books, and our enforcement officers are still enforcement officers, building enforcement.
Right.
And so they would still have to alert the state if there's anything going wrong with erosion. With the ordinance, it kind of gives them a little bit more teeth, our local ordinance. But still, if there's a big issue like the thing that was addressed a couple weeks ago with a development, that's a whole different ballgame. That's, if they disturb over an acre property, they're supposed to have a master plan by engineer, and and from now on, if they don't have a stamped engineer, it's going to the state, let them handle it. Because it's, it gets into this back and forth, and so we can't really get into that. But from the local, just somebody going out here and dozing a half-acre site, and I'm putting a house on it, it's very simple to just throw down some grass seed, to sow, kind of everywhere except for on your banks. It's where most of the cuts are. Very simple, and we can do that, and I don't think it's going to put any undue strain on a homeowner to get their home done.
The issue of Penellarca, is that being addressed by the state?
Yes. I think that at this point, they've not, so the Division of Water Quality, I believe, is the one that showed up last week. The Division of Land is coming, I think, this week. And so there are two different agencies, two different sections of agencies that are coming in. And so the first one is they've not issued a notice of violation yet. I think the owner has been given time to answer some questions. And then if they don't address the issues, then they may have a notice of violation placed on them. But at this point, they're working with the state, and the state's being very responsive at this point.
All right,
And that's all I have.
that's
tonight.
it?
Yep.
Okay. Start us, please.
Mr. Chairman, just a few things. Friday, August 28th at 1 o'clock, we had Mabel Jones' retirement celebration, and I attended that for a little while. It was a drop-in and was there for a little while. On Tuesday, September 1st, 5 o'clock, I attended or had a Giving Spoon board meeting. On Thursday, September 3rd, about 1:15 or so, Mr. King and myself, we went up on to the Mike Chris property and was trying to check out the complaint that he had brought to us on the Lackey Hill, in the Lackey Hill community. And then also I did like to get out and ride around the county sometimes, and I used to do that for a living. No one pays me to do it too much anymore, but I rode up to Earls Road, East Lark area, took a look at that. I've been a long time since I've been up way up high on Uinhala Creek, and I went to about almost to the head of that and kind of looked around. I think you have spoke to that issue up there some. So kind of got out and just rode and looked at some of those areas of concern myself. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Great, thank you.
I have no report.
Okay. Danny? Okay.
Haven't had any meetings. I got a broadband meeting coming up in about a week. The library, we're fixing to have a meeting, our first since it's all happened. So we're going to get started back with that. I guess it'd be a good time to announce on the broadband committee, we had an open spot for someone from the town to be appointed on it. They have appointed Chad Smith to be their representative on that committee, so he will be part of that committee now. So that's about all. I did miss they had a Swain Drug Coalition. I appreciate you sending me that link. I had planned to be at that, but I had a preservation board meeting that popped up at the same time and I had to be at, so I wasn't able to attend that one, but try to catch the next one.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I attended the Rec Park Advisory Board meeting. And it was more of just a general meeting. Just kind of talked about some different topics. So some flag football, they was asking Jim about some stuff that was coming up. And how it was gonna work. And, but they did schedule another meeting for December the 8th at 6 o'clock. And then the next day I did.
Excuse me,
Yes.
Kevin, where will that meeting be?
It should be here in that boardroom.
Good, thank you, sorry.
Then the next day I did meet with the, I think it's Aquatics H2O. Is that who? I think they're designers, pool designers, and they did have a contractor there that was with them that was looking at some of this stuff. And like Kevin said, we talked about the 8-foot, 10-foot thing. There was just different topics, and they're supposed to get us a plan. And I told them it'd be nice if we had it before our next meeting, because they're trying to turn this thing pretty quick to be able to get back in by Memorial Day weekend, that kind of weekend, I believe, before. And so it has to go through the health department, and so it's kind of expedited. But Kevin said he had some other guys that was wanting to bid this, so that kind of puts another expedite on it. So, but they talked pretty favorable of what we were wanting, and they did offer a couple of other ideas about the pump. I was talking about the 8-foot, 10-foot thing, and so I met with Kevin this morning, kind of him and Jim, just kind of told him what we had heard, and so hopefully they'll get us something in here pretty quick, and we can get going on this project. It's gonna be a nice asset to the rec department to have a pool like that.
Well, I think it'll be used as a tourist attraction as well.
Well, most definitely,
So
yeah.
I think, well, thank you very much. Was that it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. The thing that I would like to just update us on, I get several calls on different issues, and we're still having people ask us about the public restrooms. And so we just need to coordinate that so that we know what's going on. And I think getting a map out of the Chamber of Commerce to show where they are. Actually, when I got to looking, there's several. And so, you know, I've had a little kid that had to go to the bathroom, and then, you know, you're looking. But I think that if people have a map, they need to know when their child has eaten, when the child has drank something. It needs to be around that area. So I'm hoping that we can get that taken care of. I had another question on if we were going to be talking about affordable housing. I mean, that's a booger, because anytime you ask anyone what their definition or what they think about when they think about affordable housing, they add some stuff on, lay some stuff on you that you hadn't even thought about. So it's got to go, and we got to be really intentional in doing it. But I think that it's something that needs to happen. Also, we've been talking a little bit with TDA about electric car charging stations, and I'm gathering a lot of information, and I think other people are gathering information. So I think we'll be looking at that. How much it costs and how long it takes is one of the situations. I think they spend 7 hours or something if a car is fully discharged to recharge it. So you could have one car on one day take up the whole situation unless you have more than one. But we'll get back to that because we need to follow up on that. So I think bringing people in and listening to, and I know that Kenneth has listened to some people who have some questions about their own property and the train. And I think that we need to find out what's going on and just learn from the train, you know, what laws under which they're operating, so we can see those laws and let other people see those laws. But we really need to get some information I need information. I can't answer questions. So I need information. So I'm sure other people need information as well if they're going to be coming to us to help them solve some problems with their county property, in personal county property. But I have nothing else either. Any questions before we break up? We're not ready to break up, but we'll get there. Any new business? Anybody have any new business that you'd like to bring up or talk
I got some old business I want to ask about.
about? Okay, go ahead.
What's going on the site at Ela that we purchased? We're looking at putting some kind of, I can't remember what we called it.
And the
The event
center.
park.
All right.
Are we doing anything on it?
So we've got a grant application out. It's made it through several phases to put the pavilion in.
Yep.
So with the pavilion, it's going to be pretty large, open-air pavilion. We're supposed to know back by, I think, December.
Cool.
Yeah, so with that, and then we've talked about, of course, doing the sewer lift station. I've been reaching out to the folks around that area to see if there would be any need for like a commercial type of, maybe a partnership. So we're working with, or I'm reaching out like to Caddo LLC who purchased the Ela campground. Definitely the school, site can be utilized for that purpose as well. So and then starting the process of funding, looking at how much it's actually going to cost to do it, that sort of thing. So all that's kind of working out. And then the right-of-way, we're getting the right-of-way solidified for that piece too. So.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Okay, we just finished new old business, right?
You old business.
Yeah, update on that, that's good. Okay, we have for 9, we have no closed session items. Okay. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Got a motion and a second on the floor to adjourn. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Passed unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Good job, hard work. Getting late.
Is it happening anyway?
That one man with the train is supposed to get me a copy of his agreement. I called him